The Detroit Pistons get back over 500 with a convincing, dominant offensive win over the Chicago Bulls. We'll break down this game and how they look moving forward in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. I want to shout out again, if you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. We're on our way to 10,000 subscribers. We're less than 500 away. We want to get there by the end of the year. I really would appreciate it. It's the best way to support the podcast. Also want to shout out, we have been going live on playback, watching all the Pistons games together, the last 3 games. Today's game, I wasn't able to because I was actually at this game credentialed, but every game moving forward that I'm not at the game credential, I will be hosting a live stream of the game. You come in, you watch the game with us, you can talk in the chat, you can come up on the room, talk with us on camera, you can do all that stuff. It's been really fun. A lot of you guys have been joining in. If you guys want to join in the next one, I'll put the link down below so you can join all of us in the next Pistons game. Today's episode, I want to talk about, obviously, this convincing win over the Chicago Bulls. I want to talk about Ausar, Thompson, and Ron Holland continuing to be really impressive and give hope for the future. And look, man, this is Locked On Pistons, but there's absolutely zero way that I'm not going to talk about that Luka Doncic trade. Like, I refuse to believe that every single Locked On NBA podcast has talked about this Luka trade. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comment section down below. But I think every single one of us is going to talk about this. So we'll talk about that at the very end. If you want to hear my thoughts on that, skip all the way to the very end. But the Pistons, they defeat the Chicago Bulls. They get above 500. They're back at 25-24. A really dominant offensive victory for the Detroit Pistons. Cade had a double-double, 22, 15 assists. Jalen Duren had a double-double, 21, 13. He's who I want to actually spend the most time talking about today. But the Pistons also had 80 points in the paint. That's the most points in the paint since tracking data in 1996. So since 1996 in the NBA game. 80 points scored in the paint. Now, a lot of this had to do with the fact that the Bulls were starting 4 guards, basically, with Vucevic. That was a recipe for disaster on their end. But the Pistons absolutely dominated that. They took advantage of it and absolutely lived in the paint and had a very, very successful offensive game within this game. But like I said earlier, I want to zone in and really just spend time talking about Jalen Duren. Because Jalen Duren has been probably the most controversial player of the season this year for the Detroit Pistons. And there's been a lot of talk about his defense. But that's actually not where I want to talk about or where I want to go with here. I don't want to spend time talking about his defense because I think everyone understands where his defense is at. This month, in the month of January, the Pistons had the 3rd best defense. Did a lot of that have to do with the fact that they had Ausar Thompson in the lineup? I think so. Is it also true that Ausar maybe makes Duren better defensively? I think that's also true as well. But figuring out what's impacting it more, you can argue about that yourself. That's not where I want to go with this. Jalen Duren over the last few games has really been giving you what you expected to see from him offensively. And if you remember throughout this year, especially like I'd say in December when the defense really, crashed, I was on the podcast and I talked with you guys all the time about how the thing about Jalen Duren, and I talked about this on the Pistons Pulse with Bryce and Omari, the thing that really hurts the most about Jalen Duren not being good defensively and struggling on that end is that the reason why you invest in him and the reason why you convince yourself, okay, we'll deal with the struggles defensively is because of what he was bringing offensively, what his potential was offensively. And for the majority of this season, you haven't really gotten that. He's turned the ball over a ton when he's had the ball. They've taken the ball out of his hands a lot for the majority of this season. He's basically been reduced for the majority of this season to just a pick and roll threat, a lob threat that's not very good defensively. And what made him such an interesting prospect was his ability to operate from the elbow, his ability to be a DHO hub, a guy who is capable of making the short roll read out of the pick and roll, a guy who's able to hit backdoor cutters, a guy who's able to attack off the dribble at the DHO, like at the high post area, Like, that's all what made him such an interesting prospect. That right there is what made him such a talented offensive player. And for the majority of this season, you just didn't get to see that at all from him. He basically had been relegated to just being a lob threat. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that at the beginning of the year, the first few games, he was struggling and turning the ball over quite a bit. And JB kind of just said, you know what, we can't really do it. We got to just take the ball out of his hands. Remember, in the first few games, first 10 games, you have turnovers of 5, 4, 3, 3, 2, 2, 3. So they kind of took the ball out of his hands. However, over the last few games, you've started to see him have the ball in his hands a lot more. And you're starting to see him show what makes him such an interesting and talented and intriguing offensive prospect. In this game, he had 21 points, 13 rebounds, but he had 4 assists to just 1 turnover. And those 4 assists, that's not even counting the amount of incredible reads that he made out of the short roll. I mean, this was something that I feel like we saw him doing consistently every game as a rookie. Constantly making the right read, constantly making defenses pay for helping down on him, constantly kicking out to the corner shooter, kicking out of offensive rebounds. And that's something we just didn't see for the majority of this year. But this game, he was on point. He was dominating on the glass against a team that was undersized, made his presence known. Great. He dominated within the paint as a finisher. He dominated in transition as a lob threat. Obviously, he was good in lob threat in the half court. But then also, you got to see him handle the ball at the high post and drive Vucevic, get to the rim, have finishes around the rim, draw some free throws. You saw him drive to the rim and kick out. You saw him get the ball in the pick and roll when they started trapping Cade in the second half. He catch the ball at the high post area and immediately swing it over to the corner and get an open 3. Whether you actually got the assist or not, you saw the process coming back. Remember, if you listen to this podcast, you know I'm a big process over results kind of guy. If you do the process, the right process over and over, eventually you'll get the good results. Bad process leading to good results is not good to me. That's not something that's sustainable. And in this game, and in the game against Dallas, and honestly going back all the way to the game against Cleveland, I feel like even within that game, you're starting to see Duren look more offensively like the guy that people expected to see this year. And really, this is what he's averaging before this game. Before this game against the Chicago Bulls, his previous 8 games, he's averaging 14.5 points, 12.5 rebounds. He's shooting 72% from the field on 2 assists to 2 turnovers with 1.4 blocks, 1.0 steals. He's been more active as a defender. I don't really want to get into him as a defender, though, because I don't know if I've really changed much with where I believe he's at defensively. I think he basically is who he is right now. He's better around the rim. He's gotten a little better around the rim. He's better protecting the paint. He goes after more shots, but you get him out of space, he struggles a little bit. That's not where I want to focus, though, because I want to talk positively about him because he's giving you reason to be happy with him. He's playing much better offensively. He's doing what you wanted to see out of him. You at least in this game and the last few games, you've trusted him with the ball in his hands. In the last game against Dallas, he had 5 assists to 1 turnover. The previous game, he had 3 assists. That's the guy that you believe in. That's the guy that makes it worth it to wait on his defense. That's the guy that makes it worth it to develop his defense. Before, the biggest issue was you're dealing with the poor defense, but then you're also not even like, okay, if you're going to deal with the poor defense, at least get reap the rewards of his offense. And that wasn't happening. He was just a lob threat. You can find anyone to just go be a lob threat, and that's it. The last few games, though, you're starting to see him operate the ball in his hands. You're starting to see him make some of the reads that we expected from him. We got so accustomed to seeing in his rookie season. You saw him hit Ausar on a couple back doors. You saw him create an open 3 from Malik Beasley or Tobias Harris. He's looking much more like that tantalizing prospect everyone believed in as a rookie, especially over the last 8 games, offensively. And that player, the player who dominates on the glass offensively, the guy who dominates the paint, the guy who makes the right read when the team or the opposing team starts to double Cade in the pick and roll, and he has to give it to Duren quick, and now he's operating 4 and 3. The guy who makes the correct read all the time, that guy that we were expecting to see, the guy who can drive off a DHO and get to the rim, the guy who can operate from the high post and find an open guy backdoor cutting, that guy, That's the guy you invest in offensively, and you say, you know what, we know he's a work in progress defensively. We'll deal with it, and we'll help him grow on that end as long as we're seeing that offensively. That's the guy I will believe in. That's the guy I believed in the offseason. And that's the guy that the Pistons can invest in as their starting big moving forward if he's giving them reason to deal with the defensive concerns offensively. And he has the last few games. And listen, I still think he struggles defensively. But I think he's better this year than he was last year because he goes after more shots around the rim. And he is just 21. If he's giving you this offensively as a big, and the chemistry he has with Cade is off the charts, the how much fear him, Cade, and Ausar put in teams in transition, all of this stuff I talked about with his offense, he gives you all of that. You deal with his defensive shortcomings right now as a 21-year-old. You build around it. You have Isaiah Stewart backing him up. You play him when you need to, when he struggles defensively, and you try to build him up game after game after game, and hopefully you see that development. You buy into that. Can he do this, though, moving forward? Will this be something he consistently goes back to doing more? We'll wait and see. But the last 8 games, specifically for me, this game and the game against Dallas, when he's making the right reads and getting open shooters and open cutters with really accurate and real-time passes, that's the guy, man. That right there is the starting big of the future, and you develop him defensively. We'll see if he's able to continue that moving forward, though. So let me know in the comment section down below how you guys feel about Jalen Duren as of late. Do you like what you're seeing from him offensively, and is that enough to wait for his defense to come along if he's able to bring you this offensively? Let me know, comment section down below, or over on Twitter at KukaHill. When we come back, I want to talk about Ausar, Thompson, and Ron Holland's future with this team, and why it's looking more and more tantalizing as the games pass by. Looking for tickets to your next big event, whether it's a concert, a comedy show, or a sports game, finding the right ticket at the right price can be a headache. But with Game Time Picks, it's never been easier. Let me tell you how it works. With Game Time Picks, the app does all the hard work for you. It curates the best deals, so you don't have to waste time searching through endless ticket listings. I've been using Game Time Picks for a while now, and it saves me because I'm a procrastinator. I wait till the last second with everything, and oftentimes, other places, it screwed me over with pricing, screwed me over with the type of tickets I get. But with Game Time, you get last-minute deals all the way up to the last minute of the event, sometimes even after it starts. And you can see where your seat is within the app, so you know whether that seat is for you. And the best part, you're covered with Game Time's lowest price guarantee. If you find a better deal somewhere else, they'll refund 110% of the difference. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something comes up. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDINNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed with Game Time. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. Again, we are on our way to 10,000 subscribers. Around 50% of you guys who listen and watch the podcast are not subscribed. It's the best way to support the podcast. I really would appreciate it. We're trying to get there by the end of this year. Please hit that subscribe button. I really would appreciate it. Also, if you want to join us and watch the Pistons games live with me and the rest of the fan base, join the playback room down below. I'll put the link in the bio down below just to give you guys a description of what it is, because I had a few of you guys reach out and be like, oh, I'm shocked that happened. I didn't know that's what it was. The game will be on the screen. I'm live streaming it just like a Twitch stream, just like a gaming stream. I'll be on the screen. The game's on the screen. People can come up and hang out with me. People can talk in the chat. We interact with each other. It's a lot of fun. Instead of watching the game alone, you can watch the game with me and the rest of the Locked On Pistons community. It's been a lot of fun, a lot of turnout over the last few games. It's been a lot of fun. So if you want to join us, I'll put the link down below, like I said. But Ron and Ausar Thompson, these guys are, look, everyone knows that the biggest thing holding them back is the outside jumper. Okay, everyone's aware of that. Okay, I understand. However, these guys are. Actually, I want to make this clear. I've learned my lesson to say untouchable. You'll never see me ever call any player untouchable after what we've witnessed over the last few days. So I almost said it again. No one's untouchable. Make that clear. But these guys make it really hard to not envision a future where they are the starting wings for your team, for your Pistons, and for them to not be the just dominating opposing teams on the wings. They make it really hard to not believe in that future and to not see that future, especially with games like this. Ausar in 22 minutes, 12 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, +7 in his minutes. Then you got Ron, who had 8 points, 4 steals, 2 assists in just 15 minutes, and he was a +11 in his minutes. I was at the game. I was at the press conference, not the press conference, the media room after where they interviewed some of the players. Excuse me. And Tobias Harris came up, and he was talking about how Ron Holland doesn't even understand yet how he's making big-time plays that's changing the outcome of these games. That, yeah, he's not scoring 20 points. Yeah, he's not scoring 30 points. And Tobias specifically pointed out a play at the end of last game against Dallas, or at the end of one of the last few games. He didn't specify which one, but Ron got a steal with a 4-point game late in the game. Got a steal, went down, had a dunk, and made it a 6-point game. He's talked about how Ron just comes into the game with this infectious energy, with this, this energy that spreads and makes these momentum-changing plays that if he doesn't make them, maybe the Pistons never get this momentum. Maybe the Pistons don't end up winning this game, but Ron comes in, gets under the other team's nerves, gets a few steals, gets a few easy buckets, and now all of a sudden the momentum's back on the Pistons side. The crowd's into it. The crowd's losing their minds. That happened the last few games, and that definitely happened in this game. There was a stretch in the middle of this game where Ron Holland came into the game, got a steal, dunked it, forced a turnover on an inbounds, dove on top of dove on top of Kobe White, ripped the ball away, dished it back out to Cade, and then Cade got the ball back to Ron, who then finished a 6-point swing, all created from Ron Holland, just being a complete wrecking ball on the Chicago Bulls offense, just frustrating the hell out of them, being a nuisance, just creating turnovers, getting steals, easy buckets in transition. This dude is a dog. He's an absolute dog. And I saw him after the game walking in the hallway. He got the WWE belt that they be handing out every game. He walked out with his dad, and he was talking about, how cool it is to have the belt. And now, yes, sir, ski. I finally got myself one, feel me? He was really happy about getting the belt. And Tobias also spoke about how connected they all are and how the chemistry with this team is through the roof. So it was cool to see that and see him get to have this WWE belt for the dog of the game. I think they call it something like that. But look, these two guys, you can very clearly picture in a few years them just completely wrecking teams' offenses together. And for a few minutes tonight, you got to see it. Ron and Ausar on the floor together, and the other team just could not score. The other team couldn't score. Not only could they not score, you were forcing turnovers. You were getting out in transition. Things were being done easy offensively because you didn't have to go into the half-court setting. These dudes are just hyper athletic. Ausar is a different world when it comes to this athleticism. When you got him attacking the rim aggressively like he has tonight, it's the best of both worlds. You have both of them crazy on defense. You got Ausar that's impactful on the boards as well. You have these few passes from Ausar that make you really believe in his ball handling and secondary playmaking and secondary ball handling, which I'm praying that we continue to see more of, please. There was a pass in the first quarter of this game. Ausar's leading transition and fakes a high pass and throws an anticipation bounce pass to Tobias Harris through 2 defenders in transition. Just an absolute filthy pass. You had a few other really great kickouts, one specifically to Tobias in the right corner. Drove to the middle of the lane, got 3 guys to kick in or to suck in, and then he makes a great kick out to Tobias. These two dudes, all that's holding them back is one of them, just one, developing an outside shot. If one of them develops an outside shot, them as a duo is going to be absolutely frightening for opposing teams. Absolutely frightening. And they're both physically imposing, but in different ways. Ron is much more of the animated, vocal, bad boys, I'm going to get in your face, I'm ready to scrap at all times kind of dude. And Ausar is more so just imposing because there's no one on the floor that's more athletic than him. There's no one on the floor that is fast as him. There's no one on the floor that can jump as high as him. There's no one on the floor that can really contest him when he gets to they're both just physically imposing on the defensive end of the floor. That's their future right there. That's the future on their wings. And they just need to get one of them, just one of them, to develop as a shooter. And they need Ausar and they need JB to believe in Ausar as a secondary ball handler and Ausar to improve his handle to a point where he is the secondary ball handler. And that duo with Cade is going to be absolutely frightening. Because something, I don't know if everyone's picked up on it, a lot of people at the beginning of the year complain that Cade doesn't go fast enough. Cade looks the best when he's in transition. When he got to Ausar and Duren in transition, when he got to Ausar and Ron in transition, he just picks teams apart. Whether it's him finishing at the rim, him kicking out for a three, or him finding an alley-oop to Duren or Ausar, or finding a cutting Ausar or Ron. In transition, when they get those stops and Cade's leading the break, and you got Ausar running, you got Duren running, and you got Ron running, they're just frightening to deal with in transition. It's hard to stop them. It's absolutely hard to stop them. I'm incredibly excited and interested to see how these guys develop moving forward. How they plan on using them together. We've started to see JB be a little bit more risky trying to play them both at the same time. We've seen him do it a little bit as of late. No longer than 2-3 minute stretches. But before we weren't seeing it at all. Now you're starting to see him, dip his toes in the water a little bit. Start to test it out a little bit. How does it look? Let's give it short stretches. Can it survive? How does it look defensively? Do they really make the impact defensively where it's worth it on offense? These guys, man, are just... The Pistons got themselves some interesting, talented, physically imposing wings. And I don't think... That's something that I don't believe the Pistons have had in over a decade. And maybe even going 2 decades, to be honest. That was a major issue for this team throughout the entire 2010s when they were trying to build with Dre and Reggie, even when they tried to build with Blake. The thing that they lacked the entire 2010 decade was legit wings, 3 and 4 wings. And they have their pair right here that could be it of the future. And each game it feels like they're giving you something else to be excited about, man. Even when they make a mistake, even when they struggle, you still see it. And the crazy thing is, Ausar's not even at full strength yet. He can't even play 30 minutes yet. You get the Ausar back that was able to run full length of the court, lose no energy that we saw last year, and just be all over the place and still have 99 stamina. Once that dude gets back, it's going to be even more crazy. Because right now you see him getting gassed at times. They have to come out. Once Ausar, and it may not happen until next year. He missed the entire offseason, obviously dealt with the blood clots. It may not happen until next year. But once you get that Ausar back, where he's back to 99 stamina like him and his brother have always been, and they're just all over the place at all times, it's going to be even more scary. Ausar and Ron, man, I never thought the Pistons would have these type of wings that are this athletic and physically imposing defensively, but here we are. So let me know in the comment section down below, how much do you believe in this pairing and how much are you looking forward to seeing them develop moving forward? Let me know, comment section down below or over on Twitter at KukaHill. All right, now when we come back, I have to get my thoughts on this Luka trade, man. This trade absolutely shook the entire NBA community. Hell, even the overall sports community. We had people reacting and freaking out from the NFL, from the NHL, from the soccer community. This shook the entire sports community. I have to get my thoughts on this. Basketball season is heating up, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions in award winnings, PrizePicks makes it easy and fun to turn your sports knowledge into real money. Here's how it works. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. You can go over there, you can look, okay, do I feel like Cade scores more points, more or less than these points? Do we feel like Duren gets more or less than these rebounds? You put that all into the same ticket, and you can see if you can win more than 1,000 times your cash. My favorite thing about PrizePicks, though, is that you don't have to get every single one right in order for you to make some cash. With the flex play, you can get 3 out of 4 right, and you can still get some money back. And it's one of my most favorite reasons why I use PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's what Prize Picks. Run your game. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. We are on our way to 10,000 subscribers. Trying to get there by the end of the year. 50% of you guys who watch and listen are not subscribed. I have some news actually coming to you guys next episode. I'll wait till then to tell you. But I really need you guys to support, to continue to subscribe to the channel. It really will make my life a lot easier, and it's the best way to support the channel. Really would appreciate it. And also, like I said, if you want to join the playback rooms during the games, I'll link that down below as well. The trade that absolutely shook the sports community, I'm recording this in the second, last night. Luka Doncic got traded. Luka Doncic got traded to the Los Angeles Lakers for Anthony Davis. I didn't see it until I woke up in the middle of the night, checked my phone, saw like 300 text messages in my friend's text group. And I was like, what's going on? I look at Twitter and I see everyone just, like, my Twitter app basically is broken. And I see the news that Luka was traded. And I'm like, bro, there's no way he has to be hacked. There's no way this is actually happening. This must be a big joke. And sure enough, like, that was almost everyone's reaction, that this was, Shams got hacked, that this was fake, there's no way this actually happened. And sure enough, it's happened. And everything that the Dallas Mavericks and Nico Harrison, the GM over there, has said since then has made it even worse. This trade is going to go down as the most shocking trade potentially in sports history. Definitely, I feel like, at least in my time, and it seems like a lot of older people are saying that the most shocking trade in NBA history. And this is going to go down as maybe one of the worst trades made by a franchise. Trading a 25-year-old prime guy who just got you to the finals for an aging, often injured guy and only getting one pick for him. This is like, I don't understand. Like, this is malpractice. This was absolutely terrible, and I feel so bad for all the Mavs fans. Feel bad for Nick. Feel bad for Isaac. This trade made absolutely zero sense. And, I mean, as we've heard from executives across the league, anonymously saying this is absolutely horrible, why did they do this? I can't figure it out. What I will say, and how to link it back to the Pistons, if the Pistons were to ever trade Cade, if the Pistons were to ever want to trade Cade, if Trajan were to ever want to trade Cade Cunningham and move into a different direction, or start a rebuild, or build around someone else, if that were to ever happen, do the exact opposite of what Nico Harrison just did. Do the exact opposite of whatever the hell the Dallas Mavericks just did. If you want to move on from Cade, do the exact opposite. You want to move on from Cade? Make it a bidding war. Announce it instantly. Talk to multiple teams. Talk to the Raptors. Talk to people that he has connections with. Talk to teams that has people he's friends with. You talk to everyone possible, and you make it a flat-out bidding war. And you get as many damn picks as you can. If you ever were to try to trade Cade, you do the exact opposite of what the Dallas Mavericks just did. The exact opposite. I don't think that day will ever come, but if it does, this should be a lesson to know we will not do what they just did. Because you could have got way more than that. So, ever try to trade Cade, make it a bidding war, raise the price up, and just take the best offer. Don't single it to just one team and just take whatever offer that is and then think the other team's being quiet because they want to help you out instead of helping themselves out so no one else can try and outbid the terrible deal that you just offered. Like, do not do that. Do not do that. The other thing I will say that you can kind of draw it to the Pistons and just the NBA at large. According to the reports, the Mavs didn't want to pay Luka the Supermax, obviously. According to reports, the Lakers didn't really want to pay Anthony Davis the Supermax either. Are we living, is it possible, and this could help a team like the Pistons, and this could be a reason why Trajan is focusing so much on assets. Are we about to start entering a world with the amount of bad contracts that you see across the league, and the amount of guys who are great, but maybe not worth the 50, 60 that are getting it just because you have to at this point? Is this going to change the tide to where you don't see teams just giving the Supermax because they have to? Our team's actually going to say, no, we're not doing it. No, we won't give you the Supermax. No, we don't want to be in the luxury tax because this trade did get Dallas out of the luxury tax. Are we going to see teams now say, we don't want to be in that second apron? We're not giving you this Supermax if you're not a top 10 player in the league. You may be a really good all-star, but we're not giving you Bradley Beal money to be Bradley Beal. We're not giving you Zach LaVine money to be Zach LaVine. We're not doing it no more. We'd rather trade you or just move on. Is that a world that we might be living in? Is that the way? Could these moves, the moves that we just witnessed, could that change how NBA teams move forward? I think no. I think other teams look at what just happened not as the rule, but as the exception. I think teams are going to look at this and say, this is not what we want to do. But if it does, if this does signal that more teams will start to take the route of, listen, if we don't think you're a top 10 player, we're not giving you this Supermax, and we'll rather just trade you. I mean, that could open up a lot of possibilities for a team like the Pistons. If you can acquire picks, if there are going to be more all-star level players that are available that don't get paid the Supermax, guys that just happen to make the All-NBA team one year because with the new All-NBA rules when you have to play 65 games, there's going to be a lot of guys who are All-NBA players that don't actually make it because they don't play 65 games. Then you'll have non-All-NBA type players actually make it, be able to get that Supermax. Maybe teams don't want to do it, and not all of these players are going to be on the block all these years. Could that open up possibilities for the Pistons? Maybe. If this is the sign to things to come, that teams will just decide we're not paying you that money, we'll rather move you if you're not worth it. This could open up a lot of opportunities for smaller market teams like the Pistons to use their assets and go get a guy that maybe they're willing to pay the money because they're more valuable to a team that is a small market and is not going to be able to just acquire a top 10 guy in free agency or have a top 10 guy say, yeah, I want to go in Detroit. Trade me there only. A Jimmy Butler say, I'm only going to Detroit. That's not going to happen. But what can happen is, like I just mentioned, a guy who is really damn good that maybe isn't worth the Supermax, and their initial team's like, dude, we're not doing that. We'll just trade you instead. The Pistons are like, look, we have assets. This guy may not be worth it to you, but with Cade and whatever else we got, he'll be worth it enough to us, and we'll make it happen and actually could take us to the next level. If that ends up happening, that could help the Pistons somewhat. It could. It could help the Pistons. But like I said, I think that this is more so the exception, and other teams are going to look at this and be like, what the hell was Nico and the Mavericks doing? And we're not going to do that. Like, that's what I think is going to happen. But maybe the second apron, maybe this is. Remember, last offseason we talked with Keith Smith. He said this year would be the year that we start to see teams operate maybe a little differently because of the new CBA with the second apron. Maybe this is the first move that he was talking about. Maybe we start to see more crazy moves like this because teams do not want to be in that second apron. Maybe we start to see it happen. I don't know. All I know is that this is one of the worst deals I've ever seen a team make. You do not move on from a 25-year-old, top 10 to 12 offensive engines we've ever seen, one of the greatest playoff performers you've ever seen, one of the best players in your franchise's history that just got you to the NBA Finals in his prime for an old, often injured, he is a star, Anthony Davis, but an old, often injured guy, and not get any picks, not get a war chest of picks to help you rebuild when this eventually goes wrong. Horrible deal, but we'll see how this impacts the rest of the NBA landscape moving forward. Let me know, comment section down below or over on Twitter at @KukaHill. What were your guys' reactions to this trade, and how do you think this could impact the Pistons? Again, let me know, comment section down below or over on Twitter at @KukaHill. All I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. Till next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there. Peace out.